Alright. Hello everyone. Let me know if you can hear me alright. I'll be working on my model railroad again. Okay, I gotta get to my channel so I can check comments whenever people show up. There's my thing. Reduce the volume. Alright. I know a lot of people probably won't be getting the notification. I don't know why. YouTube is just really weird that way. They just don't send out notifications sometimes. So, hopefully people will know I'm here. Alright, so let me get... We're going to be continuing to work on this caboose here. Can you guys even... Yeah, you guys can see that. Let me get the box for the caboose out, because that's how I will be... Here we are. So... come on, live chat. Hello, Brian. How's it going? Brian says loud and clear. Awesome. Hey, Kevin. How's it going? Okay. So, what would be the next step? Alright, the next step would be glue blank wall G1 against the side wall, even with the bottom of the interior wall, and into the corner of the cupola end wall. Glue blank and... oh boy, that's... Okay, I think I see where this is going. Boy, that is... okay, so let's see. G1. Hello, Daniel. Okay, G. Ah, yeah, okay. I gotta find the box of that pattern. Hey, B Productions. Brian says, doing fine. 3 weeks off from work as holiday. Have to take before April. That sounds awesome. I wanted my dad to be able to take like a 3-week holiday or something, but things just don't work like that in the US. You have to keep working. You don't get 3 weeks. Which I don't think is very fair, you know? Like, you should be able to get 3 weeks. You're working really hard for years. You know? What sheet is G? Oh, it's this one. Okay. This one will need to be painted, I think. Let's see. Yep. Well, it does say blank wall. I don't know. Best not to take any risks. I probably should paint it. Hey, Andy. Yeah, no one will really see that wall. But they will see the other stuff. So the other stuff will need to be painted. Okay. Well, it's gotta be done. So... alright. I'm gonna have to mix up some paint here. hopefully I have time. I only wanted to do a 1-hour stream because I have to do something after this, but stay open. Okay. Where's my paint? Brian says, not going to do much, just going to relax at home. That sounds like a good idea. Ken, how's it going? And he says, that reminds me of Victorian Railways Caboose. I haven't heard of that one before. But yeah, this is a sliding door caboose. I don't know if it has a specific type of name, but it is a narrow gauge caboose for On30 scale. But I think the prototype caboose is a 2-foot narrow gauge. So it is a rather narrow caboose, that's for sure. Man, I have to move the train cam just to get to my paints. I kind of wish I had like another Tupperware or something that I could mix the green paint into, because it looks like I'm going to keep needing green paint as I go along. So that is kind of concerning. Thank you, Dave. Andy says it's the railway that ran the whole state of Victoria in Australia. Australia. Oh, nice. Okay, I'll be right back. I'm going to get some water so that way I can mix the paints together. Well, I don't need it for mixing paint. I need it for cleaning paint, but you know what I mean. Can't move that train camera any closer because I need that drawer open. Alright. Till the early 2000s, I think. Chat goes quiet. It's just there's not a lot of people on right now. Like, if I do my afternoon tea time, there'll be like 50 people on. But whenever I do these model railroad ones, I don't get as many people. Thing is, though, doing these model railroad ones is necessary because I'm trying to get a certain amount of this model railroad done within a certain time frame. Like I want, like, before summer, I want a significant amount of the work done, so that way it at least looks nice when I do these live streams. B Production says, hey Alex, what other models have you made? I have done a model of the RMS Titanic, which that model is quite old now, and it does need a lot of refreshing done to it. And I've been slowly buying up the supplies that I need to refresh it, but the supplies are rather expensive, so it's been very slow going. So I won't be working on the Titanic model until I have everything I need. And even then, I'm kind of contemplating whether I need to buy a air compressor for spraying paint, because the hull will look a lot better if I don't paint it with a brush. So, hello Mike, how's it going? Hello Sniper. Okay, where is... I'm just trying to find the right paintbrush right now. So far, all the ones I've pulled out of the box are not the correct paintbrush. Still not the right one. Ah, there we go. Okay. Hello, Daniel. Alright, let's get this paint mixed up. I'm gonna need to buy more green soon, at the rate that I'm using it. Let's see. I think that's fine for now. And then a little bit of white. Oops. That actually might be enough white. One more little droplet. There we go. See, the thing with this green is I have to match it to the rest of the car. It's a very specific shade of green. Actually, yeah, that's perfect. Okay. Got it. Okay. Radio Isotopic says, I recently got one of the 042 porters off of eBay, and I'm in the process of building a wooden shell for it to make it a steam dummy. Interesting. Daniel says, if Normandy was around, where would it be birthed? I don't know, probably in Saint Nazaire, France, where it was built. I don't know, actually. Alright, I need to make sure that I paint the right pieces the right color, because some of these are probably going to be seats for the train. Aha, number 6 is seat top. So, okay, so those will be a darker color. Okay, what's 14? Cold box, seat top. What's 10? Seat tops. Okay. And 12 is spacers. 8 is seat ends. 9 is seat support. Okay. I think I know what to paint. Alright. Ozzy. Hello, Ozzy. Today it's pretty rainy. Not too cold. Ron, how's it going, Ron? Mike says lots of snow coming. Yeah. Okay, let's see. I have to be cautious what I paint here. I don't even know if you can see what I'm doing. No, that thing's covering it up. I can put it there. Okay, so these first. So when I do these, I like to overpaint a little bit just to make sure the edges get the same amount of paint as the middle part. But then that also means having to spread the paint out so it doesn't clump up together. Okay. And this one is the side wall. Ozzy says we have a high of 80 right now. Oh, geez. B Production says, Alex, if your channel wasn't called Alex the Historian, what would you call it? It probably would have been one of the other names that my channel used to go by, like, what was it? It was, my friend came up with it. It was a really good name. I don't remember, I'm sorry. But there was a specific name that my friend came up with that I really liked, and I tried switching the channel name to that because, you see, people really don't like it when you call yourself a historian. So, I was getting a lot of cyberbullying over that, and I thought, alright, well, I'll try to change the name. So what I did was, I had my friend help me come up with a name. He ended up coming up with the entire name himself, and it was really good. It's like vintage something. And then for months, I think I spent like 2 months telling everybody on the channel, okay, the channel's going to be renamed. You know, I told them multiple times on multiple different ways, like live streams and whatnot, community posts, all that stuff, that my channel was going to be renamed. And I told them what the name was going to be. I showed them the new logo, everything. And then finally the time came. I switched the channel name. And then all of a sudden, nobody showed up to my videos after that. And a lot of people who did were like, oh, I didn't know you changed your name. And I didn't even know what this channel was. And I'm like, oh boy, that's not good. So I had to change the name back because it just didn't work, you know. People just didn't know that I changed the channel name. So I had to go back to Alex the Historian. And I've been Alex the Historian ever since. But I think I changed the name twice since I've had it. It always started off as Alex the Historian. But from all the cyberbullying I had of people who didn't like that, I tried to change it twice. And twice I had the same result. People just didn't know, no matter how much time I gave them. they didn't remember or something that I changed the channel name. Okay, so those need to be the darker color. I almost feel like this green is not light enough, actually. I'm going to add more white to it. Because now that I'm painting it, it doesn't look so light. There we go. That's closer to the color I was expecting. Okay, I'll have to repaint those. Let's see. Ron says, I'm good, Alex. How are you doing? Further episodes on abandoned spaces on the Queen Mary? At the moment, there's no plans for that. Steve is really busy doing different jobs and stuff, so we haven't really had time to set aside and plan out one of those live streams. A-Class Production says, Alex, have you ever thought about or ever almost gone back to N-Scale? No, ever since I got into On30, I just realized how much better it was for me and that I just preferred On30 so much more. So I never really thought about going back because I've done N-Scale for so long. I knew what to expect, and the only thing about O-Scale that can be kind of disappointing is just that because the scale is so big, you can only replicate a smaller portion of space or a smaller portion of land. But I'm willing to sacrifice that for the sake of having trains that actually run. None of my trains were properly running, so... Mike says, what's wrong with being a historian? There's nothing wrong with being a historian, but the problem is that people are like, oh, have you ever written a book? Have you ever taught a lecture or, taught a class or, like they think that, you can only be a historian if you've been to school for it. Which isn't necessarily true, because there are lots of people who are historians on subjects that they simply just don't teach in school. So, but there's people who have really weak views of themselves try to project onto others. And that's kind of the result of it. I don't play into it. I'm like, whatever, but I thought, if it makes it stop, then I'll try to change the channel name. But changing the channel name just ended up not being a good idea. So I was like, oh well. Oddly enough, though, for the most part, it's stopped. People haven't bothered me with those kinds of comments anymore. I think it has something to do with the fact that on every one of my videos now, there is a disclaimer at the very bottom that mentions that I'm not a university-trained historian, and explains the origin of the name on my channel and why I had that name. So after that, I'm not saying that that's what stopped it, but after that, I just never had those problems anymore. So must have done something right. Okay, so those are those. I think these have to be painted to that same color. Ron says, learned some interesting things from the ones I watched. Question, is the first class pool still available to view on the Queen Mary? No, for a couple of years now, the first class pool has been closed to all visitors because the room has been damaged, uh, both by some issues that are related to the removal of spaces beside the ship, but also just from the expensive tiles loosening and all that kind of stuff. So people who would visit the space would sometimes try to steal the tiles like right off the wall. So it's just that due to the disrepair, the room became, or sorry, I'm really tired. I only got like 4 hours of sleep last night. But just due to the poor maintenance of the room, people over time were kind of pulling stuff off the walls. So they just decided, you know what, to save the space, we're not going to keep it open until we can get it fully refurbished. And then that company went bankrupt. So so they've never reopened it. So yeah. But it would be nice if one day it could be reopened again and everybody could experience it. I have no idea what color these are supposed to be. Ozzy says, Alex, did you have to reset your clocks? I mean, I still have to. I haven't done it yet. But, you know, my phone has the correct time and my computer has the correct time. But my microwave, my stove doesn't have the correct time on it. So I'll reset those later. Thank you, Chase Railway Lines. Jano says, Alex, do you still have some of your N-scale steam locomotives? And if so, can you name them? Yeah, I still have some of my N-scale steam locomotives. 3 of them are 440s built by Atlas. One of those 440s is the Disneyland Railroad CK Holiday. It was a special collection piece that was sold a while ago. And it was actually my most reliable locomotive on my entire N-scale layout. And that was after owning like 10 N-scale locomotives. The little 440 from Atlas was the most reliable. And then let's see, after that I kept a 260, which used to work fine but doesn't work anymore. Yeah. I don't remember if I think I only kept 4. No, I do have actually a Mikado that was from the 1970s that my grandfather owned. It was part of a bicentennial train set. So I have, it's like 14 box cars. Well, actually 13 box cars with a caboose, making it a 14-car train. But the box cars each represent the 13 colonies of the United States, and the caboose represents the Union. And so that was sold in the mid-1970s in celebration of the American Bicentennial, and I inherited that from my grandfather, and I still keep that. And then I have passenger cars. I have a passenger set that I had kind of collected because it looked like the freight train on the Disneyland Railroad. So I kept that. I have another passenger set that belonged to my grandfather. I have... and I have a set of Narangan set style excursion cars, like the Disneyland Railroad. So I have those, but I don't think I have any more. I think that's pretty much it. Okay, this one's got to be painted too. since I laid down a darker green at first, now the lighter green doesn't want to shine as brightly. Which sucks, because I thought I had the right color at first, but it was just too dark. Yeah. Okay. Raymond says T-gauge is smaller than Z-scale and ZZ scale. Beat Production says, Alex, what got you interested in ships and trains? Trains I've been interested since I was a little kid. You know, my dad used to buy me model trains and stuff all the time, and I always wanted to own a layout of my own that I could build and, you know, make it look nice. Yeah, so pretty much just from my dad, you know. And then ships. I'm not really interested in ships, to be totally honest. There are ocean liners I like, but that's pretty much the end of it. Like, there are a few select ocean liners, so I wouldn't really call myself an ocean liner fan. I wouldn't even call myself a ship fan because ocean liners are the only ones that I could possibly like. So, but I got into ocean liners after visiting the Queen Mary. And that's a story I tell quite often of the last time I was on the Queen Mary in January of 2020, visiting the ship and suddenly just falling in love with it, and I had to know more about it. And in my research of trying to find more about the ship, I ended up learning about other ships along the way, but only a little bit. And it's only been 3 years, so I'm not really that well versed in ocean liners. I'm not really that, you know, knowledgeable about ocean liners. It's just I'm only knowledgeable about the stuff I've made videos on. So, because I do months and months of research before I make a video. So yeah. A-Class Production says, Alex, did they scrape one of the Queen Mary's names on the ship and replace it with Poseidon for the movie? No. For Poseidon, what they did was they built sets. So it was a combination. They had models, they built sets, and then some shots were taken on the Queen Mary, but they never removed the Queen Mary's nameplates to put Poseidon on the front. They didn't have to, because they didn't actually have that shot on the ship. They didn't have a shot of the bow with the letters, with like a person standing on the bow. All shots of the bow were done on a model, so it was a tiny little model that they shot. Mike says, I'm a historian of the Olympic-class ships. I really know their history. Nice. Daniel says, wait, Mike, I have a question. Okay, I shouldn't have read that. Ken says, I bought a second On30 white comb diesel loco for my 9-car freight train. Hopefully running a double header works okay. They are the same engine, and my first one is by far my most reliable. Nice. Andy Gaming says, get more sleep. I tried. You know, I'm one of those people where I can only sleep for a certain amount of time, and then once I wake up, whether it's something wakes me up or I wake myself up or I have an alarm, once I'm awake, I cannot go back to sleep until, you know, at least 12 hours later. I cannot, because I ended up waking up sooner than I wanted to today, this morning, and I tried to roll over and go back to sleep, but once I'm awake, I'm awake. I cannot go back to sleep. And so I tried. I probably laid in my bed for 2 hours trying to get back to sleep, and I realized it just wasn't going to happen. So I'm going to have to wait to sleep tonight, because I've tried taking naps. I'm just not a nap person. My brain doesn't fall asleep. So yeah, once I'm awake, I'm awake. Okay, I got to cut these out. Oh, actually, I think this one could use painting too. I think all these could use painting. But that's the thing that sucks, is that sometimes I'm such a light sleeper that, you know, if a pin drops, I'll wake up. But then other times, I can sleep right through, like, you know, like a construction, you know, sound, like jackhammers going and all that. So... Victoria says, "Hi, Alex. Love that your nickname is your channel's name. By the way, my aunt nicknamed me Vikita, and it means Little Vicky. Nice." Daniel says, "Hey, Alex, what do the numbers on the steam locomotive's cabin tender?" If you're asking about my N-scale locomotives, I don't remember. I don't remember what the numbers are. Doc says, "Hi, Alex. Hi, everyone. Hope you all have a great weekend so far." Thank you, Doc, and welcome to the live stream. A-Class Production says, "Alex, what is your favorite standard gauge railroad?" Standard gauge. I don't have one. I'll be honest, I don't have one. I don't know many standard gauge railroads. And even the ones I do, I'm not a fan of them. So I'm such a narrow gauge person, I just don't have, like, standard gauge favorites. Mike says, "I have to take melatonin to sleep. If not, I can't sleep at all." That's the same thing for me. I take melatonin every night because I cannot sleep without it. But that also is a problem because, you know, again, once I wake up, I'm awake. I can't go back to sleep. So it does become a problem. I have to be very careful when I sleep, so that way I give myself plenty of time. And, you know, I'll even wear, like, earplugs sometimes to block out all the sound. I've worn night sleeping masks to cover my eyes so the light doesn't wake me up. But something always wakes me up, you know, something always wakes me up. So, and I'll be lucky if I'm able to turn over and go back to sleep. But most of the time, if I have to turn over or something with my eyes open, then I can't close my eyes again and fall back asleep. It's just, yeah. Oh, Daniel says, "Sorry, what are the numbers for?" So the numbers on the front and back of steam locomotives are the numbers of the engines. So they're usually called road numbers. And so basically, like, to use Disneyland as an example, the first engines brought to the line are numbered 1 and 2. So a railroad generally starts their numbering system with 1. And then every engine they acquire after that becomes the next number. So that's, and it doesn't matter if it's a different type of engine. It usually assumes the next number in the line. But that can also change. Sometimes the road number is like a certain kind of designation. So sometimes it's like a class number, and a class number generally is like 4 digits. But now we're getting into the field where I just don't know that much, because I'm really only interested in small, narrow gauge railroads, and they usually don't have more than 2 digits in the number. So once we get to numbers that have like 4 digits, my knowledge about it gets kind of fuzzy. So, Chris says, "Hey Alex, have you ever tried watching head-to-toe assessment ASMR videos to get you back to sleep?" I don't like ASMR videos. It kind of triggers my anxiety because I can't stand. It's a long story. It's a long story. In-Class Production says, "To be honest, Alex, there are thousands of logging and narrow gauge railroads that half the people in the U.S. don't even know about." That's true. That's true. There are tons of logging railroads up here in Oregon that I've only just barely scraped the surface, just barely discovered them and found out what they're all about. So, yeah, that's totally true. Jeremy Fowler says, take out an old college textbook and start reading. You'll be asleep before page 3. Yeah. Hey, Pookie, how's it going? Daniel says, hey, Alex, were there any problems running a narrow gauge railroad back then? Oh, of course. There's problems running, all kinds of railroads even today. There's never a stop with the problems. And the problems always have to do with maintenance. So it's just things wear out, things get old, things need to be replaced. So yeah, there's always issues with every railroad, but I wouldn't say there was any more issues with narrow gauge than there were with standard gauge. I wouldn't say that there was a difference when it came to maintenance issues. They all had the same maintenance issues. Raymond Legg says, are you going to put warm LED lights in the car? I did consider it. I really did. I even bought the mechanisms so I can wire it up to make the light. But I ultimately decided not to do it. And yeah, the reason why is because in order to do it, I needed to have a certain kind of bogie truck underneath the car. And while the bogie truck was prototypical for the first years of this car's existence, I don't like the way it looks. I wanted to use the freight truck they used in the later years of this car's existence. It looks more natural on the car. And so because of that, the other bogie truck that I have is not capable of picking up electricity. So, but there was that, and then there was also the fact that I already have a lot of cars with a lot of lights in them, and I didn't want to overwhelm the system. So, because whether this car is on the main line or on the freight line for waiting, it's powered either way. So even if there's not a train pulling it, it would light up. And I just don't want to have all that power load just pulling away from the engines. So that's pretty much it. That's the only reason why, really. But yeah, I just ultimately decided I just didn't want to do it. So... Doc, yeah, it's true. It just I've tried. I can't do it. I can't. ASMR. It gets to me. I can't do it. Mike says, I fall asleep watching TV, but it's after midnight. I do that too. I mean, every night before I sleep, I watch Frasier. Frasier is my favorite show. It always makes me laugh. It's so like even after I watch like something scary or something with a friend, right before sleep I'll watch Frasier, and it'll just, it's kind of like my comfort show. So yeah, and that's what I do. And sometimes I fall asleep watching it, and the TV will shut itself off or whatever. But yeah, sometimes I just have trouble sleeping. Ron says, Alex, in your opinion, do you think City of Long Beach will fully try and restore the ship to its original floor plan, and what is happening to the remaining decks with staterooms that are not being used as for hotel guests? Okay. So no, I don't want it to sound like, oh, Long Beach will never restore the ship to its original floor plan. It's not that they don't want to. I mean, that might be part of it, that they don't want to, but it's also a nearly impossible request, because so much of the original floor plans on the ship have been completely redone. Not all of them. I don't want to scare people into thinking that like most of the ship is gone, because it's not. That's a big misconception that most of the ship is gone. But a large portion of the ship is gone. They've removed a lot of stuff. And it would probably cost an estimated like $2 billion to fully bring the ship's, floor plans back in and have everything installed. And the return on that cost would be so minimal that it just doesn't make any sense financially. Even me as a Queen Mary fan, if I was in charge of the ship, I would not restore the ship back to its original floor plan. That is just too costly, and it's not worth it. I think with something like that, you need to really choose your battles. And so I think in that case, I would choose to restore the most important parts of the floor plan, even if it means representing other parts. So there's an area forward on our deck that used to have third-class rooms, and it used to have spaces for the crew. That area could be restored, and it could represent other areas that are gone as well. It could represent the areas on C and D decks that are gone. It could represent areas on B deck that is gone. So, so by just restoring tiny bits of what used to be there, it can represent everything that used to be there. And so it's things like that that I would strategically bring back. But no, I would not think it was a very good idea to restore the entire floor plan. But as for your second question, what is happening to the remaining decks of staterooms that are not being used for hotel guests? There are no more staterooms in those areas. So we're talking about areas of C and D decks, areas of E deck maybe. If I'm remembering E deck correctly, I might have it a bit mixed up. But C and D decks for sure used to have both second, third, and some first-class cabins. Those I would never expect to come back. Not unless the ship became super popular. Not unless James Cameron made some kind of Queen Mary movie. Then, if the ship was super popular and they needed more hotel rooms, and I mean needed more hotel rooms, then they might consider bringing rooms back to those decks. But even then, it wouldn't be brought back to how it was in the past, because on C and D decks, even the first-class cabins were super tiny, not enjoyable to most hotel guests today. So they would definitely be larger versions of what they were, and certainly modern versions, that's for sure. But it would, yeah, basically just to kind of summarize, the ship would have to really, really, really need more rooms. But the good news is that they did make sure to keep a lot of those spaces empty in case one day they did need to reinstall rooms to add to the capacity of the ship. So it is possible. In fact, even the electrical systems on the ship are designed to be easily expanded for the use of, I think, twice as many rooms as what's already on the ship. So it's actually kind of cool. The plumbing system is extra large to accommodate for added rooms to the ship. So they already did that as far back as the 1970s. So it is possible to add more rooms back to the ship. But I wouldn't expect them to be the original floor plan or the original style. Pookie says, have you considered doing a video on the Royal Yacht Britannia? Yes, I have considered it, but it will take a lot of research. It will take a lot of research. And I need to get footage of it. A Class Production says, Alex, what remote do you use for your On30 layout? I don't use a remote at all. My layout is a DC layout, which means that it's analog, so I can't use a DCC remote on it. Doc says, oh my god, you're a Frasier sleeper. There's a whole community of folks who watch Frasier to go to sleep. It's the best show ever. I didn't know that there was a whole community of people that did that. That's funny. Raymond Legg says, you're giving James Cameron ideas. I would hope so. James Cameron is somewhat of a Queen Mary fan. He's just never made it that public. But he is somewhat of a Queen Mary fan. Okay. I'm going to paint the rest of these pieces the darker shade of green that they need to be. And then I'm going to call it done for today because, well, I'm not going to call it done quite yet. I probably can go till 3:15. So it's 25 more minutes. I just need to be careful because I have somewhere to be in a few hours, and I need to make sure I give myself enough time. So, In class production says, what I meant was I think I was using that as an example. Do you like to use the Bachmann Easy remote that comes in sets? I have no problem with the... I mean, I don't know. I've never heard Easy remote, but I think I know what you mean, the transformer. I don't have a problem with using the Bachmann transformer, except that it's not very powerful. So what I use is Rail Power 1300, and that's powerful enough for a big layout, because there's a lot of track on this layout. So I just want to make sure that there's an even amount of power being applied. Okay, so this thing... Okay, that's scary. That green doesn't even look any different than the light green I applied. Did I just not paint this green light enough? I could have sworn I did. I'm starting to think that the light green I painted is not the right green. I shouldn't have attempted to do this so tired. I should have just waited. No, that's the same green. What? Okay, I guess the light's just playing tricks on me. I can always darken this green if I feel it's not dark enough. But I was just... It's weird because the dark green I like to use is straight out of the bottle. I don't need to mix it with anything. So I was kind of hoping that I would see a noticeable difference for some reason, but I don't. I don't see a noticeable difference. Yeah, I'm going to mix that green with, like, black or something. It's just not dark enough. That's so weird. I think the light is playing tricks on my eyes, because the dark and the light green look pretty much the same color. There is a slight difference, but they look the same color to me. That's weird. Daniel says, Alex, do you think Queen Mary is one of, if not the crown jewel of Long Beach? Oh, it most certainly is the crown jewel of Long Beach, for sure. And the city knows it too. That's why they don't want to get rid of the Queen Mary, because it is literally their crown jewel. Pookie says, that story of the family that was held up by the Germans and Queen Mary waited for them would make an excellent movie. James Cameron. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a good story. Ocean Liner Channel says, hi, just joined, looks good. What are you building right now? I'm currently working on a caboose. So I'm currently building a caboose. Yeah, it's one of the most detailed models I've ever built, even more detailed than my Titanic model. And so it does take a while. Daniel says, Alex, I heard that Queen Mary once ran aground somewhere in France. Yes. She was in the harbor of Cherbourg. A wind blew her a little bit, and she got grounded on one of the sandbanks, and she was stuck there for, I think, 24 hours. They finally, the next day, during the next tide, were able to move her. I think it took something around like 14 tugboats to move the Queen Mary off the sandbank. And then something similar happened to the Queen Elizabeth not too long after. She also got grounded. But that's because Cherbourg has a really shallow harbor, so the Queen Mary could never pull up to the Oh, darn it. What was I going to say? The docks, because the harbor was too shallow. So a tender had to carry passengers from the docks to the Queen Mary. And that tender was the Nomadic, and the Nomadic was the same tender that ferried passengers to the Titanic. So, pretty cool little connection there. And then Queen Mary actually, the first time she ever got grounded on any sandbank was actually while she was being floated down the Clyde River just after being completed. She was being floated down the Clyde River to towards the open ocean or open sea, and they were going to go past the Isle of Man all the way down to Southampton. But as they're going down the Clyde, the ship got grounded on a shallow part of the river. Now, the river had to be dredged deeper in some areas to help the ship get through because the ship was just the largest ship, Clydebank had ever seen. And so, yeah, that was a pretty interesting story. But yeah, that one, I think 6 tugboats freed her from that when she got stuck in Clydebank. But yeah. Mike says it will dry darker. It certainly will. It's just not as dark as I hoped because I wanted the seats to have a much darker color. I wanted it to stand out, so I really want to add some black. I guess I don't have a small bottle of black. I have to use... Oh, this is gray. I have to use a big bottle. Hi, Moonzer. Okay, that little bit of black was probably a little bit too much. That's okay, I can mix some lighter green into it. Okay, I am satisfied with that green. Okay, Doc says, did you already say why the inside is green? So, first of all, the green that I chose is actually a prototypical green for the time. But the other reason why is because I really love the Disneyland Railroad Caboose, and it's the same green color scheme on the inside. So I chose to replicate that, but it is a common green color for cabooses at the time. It's a very pastel green. But the seats need to be a really dark green, very dark, because they were leather and just very dark, moody green. Okay. So let's do this. Yeah, Doc, I know in the in the video, it looks neon, but it's really not. It's not glowing that much in real life. It's green for sure, but it's not... Like, I'm looking at it on my phone. It's not really that bright green in real life. Okay, let's see. Okay. I'll give that a minute to kind of dry. And then I'll go back over it one more time with a darker color. Or not darker, but the same dark color. Chris says it took them about 6 days to free up the battleship Missouri. They had to remove all of the ammunition and the 16-inch main gun projectiles to make the ship lighter. Yeah, I bet. Moonzer says, Alex, why did they take the boilers out of Queen Mary? Because the whole reason why Long Beach purchased the Queen Mary in 1967 was because they wanted to turn her into a Jacques Cousteau Museum of the Sea. And originally they had plans to build a building for the Museum of the Sea, but when they found out the Queen Mary was going to be sold, they decided to buy her instead and use her as the museum because it was cheaper than building the building. And so they, when the Queen Mary came to Long Beach and they started the conversion process, they had to get rid of all the boilers in the boiler rooms to free up the space in the boiler rooms to use as the museum. And it ended up that during construction, the museum just ran out of funding. And so they were able to build the museum in like a third of the spaces that they allotted, but the other 2/3 of the spaces were left empty and abandoned, which is how they look today. So, yeah, originally it was meant to be a large Museum of the Sea. But people who said they went to the Museum of the Sea really liked it. You know, they said they enjoyed it. Yeah. I gotta remember not to look at the microwave when I check the time because I still haven't adjusted the time on the microwave. So this is drying nicely. Just got a little bit more to go. And then next time I work on this, I can cut them out and start assembling them into the furniture. Lunzer says, Alex, did they scrap the boilers? Yes, as far as I understand, they did. They had chopped the boilers up into a lot of tiny little pieces and hauled them up out the top of the funnels in rather the same manner that the ship was constructed in, actually. A lot of people like to say, oh, well, they cut open these huge holes in the in the what do you call it? The watertight bulkheads, and that created instability on the ship. That's not true. They did cut large holes in the watertight bulkheads, but that's how the boilers were installed in 1934. Was they had built the ship to be able to hold all its weight and be able to shift the boilers around by having large openings in the watertight bulkheads. And so so the ship's ability of strength was already based off of knowing that there would be openings in the watertight bulkheads during the installation and removal of boilers. So so yeah. So the holes that are in the boiler room bulkheads right now are not necessarily dangerous to the ship. Only if the ship were to go out to sea would there be really a problem. Stefan says, "Hi, long time no see. What did you do on the train? Do you build your own carriage wagons? How does it drive on the rails?" So this is my first time building my own. I really wanted this specific caboose, and the only way you could buy it is as a model kit. So I am putting it together. It's a wood model kit. It's a very advanced level of model kit, so I'm not used to how complex it is to build, but it's going nicely. So I'm just putting the second coat of paint on some of these benches. I'm almost out of this dark paint because I only mixed a little bit of this dark paint, but that's okay. I don't think I'll run out. Cool, that's done. Do these next. Okay. Darn it, I got a little bit of the... That's okay, because I gotta finish painting some other pieces. Big says, "I wish they would stop changing the time. It drives me nuts." Same here. I really do not like daylight savings time. I really, really don't. I wish they would just stick to one time year-round. Ozzy says, "How boilers did the Queen Mary have?" I think you mean how many. So the Queen Mary had two different types of boilers. She had 24 Yarrow boilers. The Yarrow boilers provided the steam necessary for the propulsion of the ship. And then she had 3 double-ended marine Scotch boilers. And those were similar to the kind used on Titanic, except larger. And those 3 marine Scotch boilers were used to power the turbo generators, which create electricity for the ship, as well as provided steam for the heating of rooms and also for steam cooking equipment in some of the kitchens. So that's, and then I think I already said for heating, but just to make sure, they also had steam radiators in some parts of the ship, of like crew areas of the ship, and so that some of that steam would go for that. And then if the ship was racing for the blue ribband, they could actually designate one of those Scotch boilers for use to contribute steam to the main propulsion plant, to drive the ship faster through the ocean. So they actually had that ability. So it was pretty interesting, yeah. Ocean Liner Channel says, "Is the Queen Mary still able to drive today?" No, absolutely not. All of her boilers are gone, so she can't produce any steam. She has no electrical power of her own. She receives all her power from the shore side because all her turbo generators are gone. She doesn't have a water softening plant anymore to even produce clean water for boilers if she had them. So she would need an all-new water softening plant. And she had 4 engines, 2 of them each located in their own respective engine rooms. But her forward engine room is completely gutted and turned into a convention center. So she only has 2 of her engines left, and they have been sitting for so long, I don't even think God could get them to work again. So, yeah, it's not possible at all. Not possible. So, let's go ahead and... I forgot that these ones here need to be painted as well, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish that up. And then... yeah, see, at the beginning of this live stream, when I accidentally put a darker shade of paint down on the other wood pieces, that darker shade just automatically darkened all the pieces. So I can see these pieces I just painted right now that didn't have any color on them now look nice and bright, and they match the interiors. But the other pieces, I've tried painting them multiple times, and they still retain that darker green color. But I'll try one more time. This will be the 3rd coat. And the reason why I'm even doing a 3rd coat is because I accidentally got some of the really dark green paint on some of these pieces while I was doing the benches. So, it needs to be redone anyway. Moonzer says, Alex, do you know how many telegraphs are on the Queen Mary? No, I don't. There's a lot of them, though. And they were all for different purposes. So, yeah, unfortunately, I do not know how many were on the Queen Mary. Daniel says, hey, Alex, did they use a set to shot the Carpathia scene in Titanic 1997? Yes, to the best of my knowledge, they built a set specifically for Carpathia. There's a possibility they might have reused part of the Titanic bow set. Because it did, when I looked at it, I was kind of like, this looks just like the Titanic bow, but just redressed to look like Carpathia. Not bow, but I should say the forward well deck on Titanic. So I was kind of like, I don't know, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody told me that they reused the forward well deck set to use as the well deck on Carpathia. So, yeah. Steven says, or Stefan says, cool, but how does it drive on the rails? Do you have a bottom piece, or is it stuck on another wagon? No, it will have a bottom piece. This isn't incomplete, so there will be a floor and everything, and I have wheels and everything. So yeah, it's incomplete. It's in the process of being built. So. Let's try to get as much of this repainted as possible, because I do have to get going and get ready to leave. Yeah, all these pieces look so dark. Okay. That's done. And then There's this white piece right here that I just realized needs to be painted really dark. So, I'm going to do that right now. Chris, wow, it took a long time to build those models. Wow. Moonzer says, in Port Everglades, when the Queen Elizabeth was a tourist attraction, they did not take boilers out of the Queen Elizabeth. That is correct. They did not, because they didn't need to. The Queen Elizabeth was a tourist attraction, but they did not have the same plans for her as they did for Queen Mary. Queen Mary was going to be, not just the hotel and convention center, but the Jacques Cousteau Museum. So, so for that museum, they needed to take the boilers out to make the space. But for Queen Elizabeth, the specific plans they had for her did not require the removal of the boilers. So that is why she appears the way she does. Or that's why... I'm sorry, my brain is so exhausted. That's why they didn't remove the boilers. Chris says, I bet the United States Navy could get the RMS Queen Mary back to fully running again. I mean, in technicality, it's like I always say, if you have enough money, you can accomplish anything. So, I mean, yeah, the Navy can, but I don't want people to get the idea that, if someone just wants to get her back to running order, they can. Like, it's so impossible. It just would never happen. It would take some kind of, like, desperate measure for someone to actually want to go in there and do it, But the problem is if you say that to someone, if you say, oh, well, yeah, the Navy could if they wanted to, next thing you know, you got 10 people going on their channels going, oh, apparently the Navy can get it running again. And it's like, well, then you mislead everybody into thinking that it will happen. So it's just, yeah, that's one of those things I've learned, to just not try to entertain those notions, or else people take it and they run with it. Okay, I'm done painting this this whole sheet, because, yeah. There's overpaint, and that's to make sure that the corners were well painted, and all these pieces will eventually be cut out. I don't know if you guys can even see. Yeah. So all the pieces will be cut out and eventually assembled, but not today. I don't have the time anymore. I only had about an hour to do this live stream. Let me answer some questions, and we'll get going. Mike says, yes, part of the Titanic set was used to look like Carpathia. Yeah, that makes sense. I kind of looked at it, and I was like, that looks exactly like Titanic's well deck, but just redressed a little bit. Chris says, if they can get the Iowa-class battleships ready for war, then they could get Queen Mary running like brand new. Yeah, but the Iowa-class battleships were not, abandoned for, 50-some-odd years with all their equipment missing. The Iowa-class battleships were still in service on and off even until the 1980s. So it really wasn't that long, it really wasn't that long between intervals. Sam says, just finished replacing the stripped out gears on my Lego Erie L-1 0-8-8-0 Camelback. Wow. Top Impressive Line says, Alex, a few days ago I donated $10 to your GoFundMe page. Oh, thank you so much. I did notice that I got an extra $10 on there. So thank you all so much. See you later, Oceanliner Channel. Ron Bakaki says, Alex, thanks again for answering all my Queen Mary questions. Hope you have a fabulous evening. Thank you. Danny Avictia says, read this, please. Bork. Okay. All right, well, that is enough silliness for today. I guess I may not be able to see you all on Wednesday, because that apartment inspection I was supposed to have last week never happened, and they tell me now that it might happen on Wednesday. So Wednesday is when I usually do my tea time, and so I may not be able to do it on Wednesday, we'll see how things go. But I'm hoping this Friday will be some kind of video coming out. It really depends on how much time I have. There's a few videos currently in the works, and any one of the 3 videos could become Friday's video. So, all depending on how much I'm able to get done. So, alright folks, thank you all so much for joining me, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.